Hello YouTube, this is Ashen here. I am an extrasensory psychic. I am also a trained shaman, qigong teacher, completion process and parts work facilitator, and heart space coach. And I will invite you right now to subscribe down below, press the little button, follow me, check the little bell for notifications, and to give this video a like, please. Today, I want to talk to you guys about parts work. Now, parts work is something that has truly changed my life and truly altered my consciousness. The more I began to take on the different parts of my psyche and of my consciousness, the more I was really able to develop an awareness that I am all of these parts and I am none of them at the same time, right? So they have less of a control over your life, and you're more capable to easily be like, oh, I'm in that part right now, and to identify and disidentify where needed. And you start to develop this eerie kind of awareness of what it's like when your consciousness switches parts. And by integrating your parts, you are truly capable of shifting your life, shifting your reality, and really altering the impact of the life around you. You're really capable of altering the manifestations that you're bringing into your reality. The more I worked with my parts, the less they were taking a negative impact on my life. I was really able to work through my self-hate, and I was really able to work through the things that I was doing that were not self-loving and that were not in alignment with my truth. And I really took advantage of doing parts work as much as I could every single day. And working with a practitioner, I was always working with a practitioner on a weekly basis. And the benefit of working with a practitioner is that when you're working with a practitioner, you're not on your own with that part. So you can truly dive into the consciousness of that part fully and have someone truly ask the right questions and see the perspective of the part enough to say, okay, this is where this part is, this is what we have to do with this part, this is how we can get this part from point A to point B, where it is now to where we would like it to be, or where we can actually find a third option with this part and that part's perspective. Because the really important part to remember here is that your parts, sometimes they're right, actually. Sometimes your essential identity or what you want is actually not what you really want in this situation. And so we have to really explore the perspective of our parts, and we also have to explore the perspective of both aspects of the part. What is the split? What is the part that is opposing me in this situation? What is the part that is at opposition with me in this situation? Because oftentimes you will be identified with one part and you have another part that's actually the one that's manifesting in your life, and you're like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep manifesting this? Why does this keep happening to me? And you go into the part and you find out and you're like, oh, this part is actually trying to protect me. Oh, this part actually has something valid to say. Oh, this is actually cool with me. It's no longer a big deal. It's no longer an aversion to my life, and now I actually understand it and want to work with it. So the point of parts work is not to just alter and change how that part feels, right? It's also really important to expand your perspective of the parts you're more conscious of and identified with. I'll give you an example. So there was a long time in my life where I really desperately wanted to lose weight, and I was like, okay, how do we do this? How do we make this happen? And I went into the part that wanted to keep the weight on, and I was like, oh, it makes sense. It's protecting me. It's keeping me safe, actually, and I actually don't feel safe in this situation without this weight. And I actually just became okay with that. I became okay with the fact that I had a lot more to work through and that I needed to actually take physical action to change my physical surroundings before it felt safe for my part to do that. And so my new goal became working on health instead of working on losing weight, because now I was like, okay, well, I'm actually now in alignment with the reason the part wants to keep the weight on. And at the same time, I'm still slowly working in that direction of making the physical changes in my life that this part needs in order to release that weight. There are so many gems hidden within parts. There are gifts that you didn't know you had. There are talents that you didn't know you possessed. And the shadow is not always this scary territory of what is bad, but a lot of it is actually what is good about you that's been suppressed. And the more you're capable of exploring, like an astronaut, all different areas of your consciousness, the more you'll be capable of handling your life and handling the different perspectives of people as they come into your reality, right? When you have someone in your life that is in opposition to you, you can actually take on their part, not to alter it or change it or do what you want with it, but just to understand it, just to find understanding with it, or to find a conscious agreement with it. You can speak to the part of them that is doing this, and you can actually find a conscious agreement with the part of the other person, because we are all aspects of the universe, right? It's really, really helpful actually when someone else takes on the consciousness of your part. And how it works is when my friend is taking on the part of me that is something, we are all connected in this universe. So it's actually no different than if that part was actually being taken on by me in that moment, because I am coming in contact with the part of me that feels that way in the same way that I would be coming in contact with the part of me that feels that way by channeling it within myself. I'm having a conversation with it externally instead of internally feeling and becoming aware of its consciousness. And it has the same impact for integration, but it can actually be much more powerful when you're speaking to it instead of actually being identified with it, because when we're overly identified with our parts, then sometimes our ego comes in, and sometimes we get too lost in the ability to really disidentify with it enough to allow that change to happen, right? And we really want to make parts work not about emotions, not about staying stuck in different emotions, but in really understanding the consciousness and the perspective that it took to create that perspective awareness. It's really, really important when you're doing parts work to come back into the central identity and really assess where that part is and where it needs to go from a different perspective from the central identity, and to really assess what questions can we ask it. When I am developing what to ask a part with my clients, I'm really figuring out where they are and figuring out how to expand their perspective slowly. So let's say that I figure out it has something to do with, okay, mom did this when she was a kid and this was my perspective because of that. The more questions that I ask to go deeper and deeper and deeper on how that aspect feels, the more it begins to actually become aware of itself, and the more it actually begins to develop a consciousness to provide me with the information that I need. It's truly about understanding that perspective fully. When I start to really understand that perspective fully and why it feels that way, the answer that it needs to hear, what it needs to hear, becomes so clear. So it's so easy. And I'm gonna show you a little example right now. I release myself of all roles I'm currently playing, have ever played, or will ever play. I choose to become the part of me with my own free will that is fearless. I'm breathing in, I'm releasing myself, and I'm allowing my consciousness to sink into this part. We're here to live. We're here to live our life. So we need to figure out what it is that we're meant to be doing. There's nothing that is going to really and truly stop you from doing what you need to do in this life or doing what you love, because you are in control. You're in control, and you can handle whatever comes your way. You can handle whatever you need to. How old are you? I'm 6 years old. And how did you come to be? Well, my opposing part is the one that is actually terrified. She's terrified of the dark, and she's terrified of the people that have hurt her in her past. Okay. So I developed in order for her to not need to be afraid, because I was the part that was capable of dealing with anything. I am the part that is capable of whatever life throws at her, no matter what. I released myself of this role. Okay. Now, I'm going to go into the opposing split of this. I release myself of all roles I am currently playing, will ever play, or have ever played. I choose to take on the opposing part. I can't. No. I can't do this. I release myself of this role. So, in that circumstance, I would have to ask this child why she's so afraid, what's happening to her in her life, and then I need to figure out what exactly she needs to hear from me in order to make it that she can genuinely cope, like deal with this situation and be okay with this situation without needing the coping mechanism or the strategy of being fearless. My next objective is to talk to the part that feels fearless and the part that feels afraid enough to merge and understand what the middle ground is between their perspectives. How can I bring that fearlessness into the part that is afraid in order to deal with the situation, and how to I show the part that is fearless and steps on fear that there is actually a valid place and time for fear, and that there's actually a place where fear is telling us something valid and is showing us a boundary line, or is making us aware of an area of our life that is actually warning us and telling us that there is actually danger present here, or there's something unwanted here in this experience, and that we have to actually listen to that and work with that and hold that fear's hand. So there's information inherent in both sides to the spectrum, but we have to bring that part closer and closer and closer to a middle ground understanding, so that they can actually hold hands, give each other a little hug, a little integration, and work together in one direction in order to make you feel more whole, more capable, and give you more clarity. Since I've started doing parts work, the clarity and the wholeness in my life is unbelievable. Not only have I been able to do all sorts of things like, create discipline in my health routine and manifest an amazing boyfriend and manifest consistent abundance and manifest, but it's about that feeling of wholeness and peace that I have found within my heart. It feels just so much less cluttered, so much less uncertain, so much less overwhelming, so much less clouded. I used to feel completely clouded and overwhelmed and overtaken at all times of the day because I had 50 different parts fighting in one direction, 50 different parts fighting in another direction, and I was in the middle, like, not knowing what the hell I needed to do. And now I have enough of my parts in enough of agreement that it's like, okay, we're good. We know what we're doing and we're okay. And so all of my aspects can kind of breathe and feel that peace and sense. Thank you for being a part of the Lush Hearts Blossoming community. Join the Lush Hearts Blossoming Facebook group, subscribe, hit the like button,